Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here at Spawn Fly Fish. My name is Pete, and today we're going to tie a little articulated streamer. We'll be topping it off with the baby bow streamer head from Spawn Fly Fish. And we're going to use the Arex NS122 light stinger hook. This is a size 4. And when we tie our fly today, we're going to tie it in an upturned fashion for our trailer hook. So in order to do that, we're going to add some weight on what will be the bottom of the shank to give it a proper keel or orientation in the water. For thread, we're just going to use some black 6/0 there. So I've cut 2 pieces of 0.025 non-lead weighted wire. And since we want this to be the bottom, we will add our weight to that side to get it to roll over a little easier in the water. These pieces are just a little smaller than the length of the flat part of the shank. And they'll go side by side and sit right on the bottom or top, if you will, of the shank. Let's get that tied down. Important to get this tied down really well because everything else is going to be tied on top of this wire. So if this wire slips, the rest of your fly will slip as well. Just be careful of those edges here. And you could cement this or super glue it too and give it a little extra strength, but I think we're going to be all right. So if you've never worked with Senyo's laser dub, it's the easiest material I know of to use for veiling, which simply means we're going to tie it onto the hook and reverse it or veil it over itself again. Makes a great looking minnow body, real fishy in the water. It's got a little translucence to it, holds its profile but does slick back for that tapered minnow look. And because we're doing a minnow, we're going to skip the tail because on smaller bait fish, typically a tail is not that important of an issue. So for our underbody, we're going to tie in some silver wire. This is a size brassy. And I'm just going to use that for a rib on our body material. And for the body material, we've got some olive crystal pearl chenille. You can strip a little bit off the end here if you want, make it a little easier, cleaner tie-in spot. We're just going to tie right back to where we finished our wraps on the wire. Real simple body and a great effect from the laser dub, and we'll have an amazing fly here. One thing before you start wrapping your body of chenille or whatever material, if you're using wire as a rib, go ahead and bring your wire forward. Make one wrap that passes behind the wire, and as you come up for your next wrap, pull your wire back. Makes a cleaner spot of tie-in, and it also adds a little strength and protection for that wire. So now from here, we're just going to wind this up the length of the hook shank. And laser dub condenses really well, so if need be, we don't really have to worry about crowding in the front here. Let's tie that off. Stick it down. A couple more, and it's cut. As you can see, laser dub wants to grab onto our chenille. Okay. So now as we counterwind or wind in the opposite direction of our chenille, we're going to space it. It'll pretty be a little natural and see where it wants to go, and then just wiggle it a little as you come through, and it helps not trap all these fibers, but it actually seats the wire down towards the core of the chenille a little bit better too. Cleaner, stronger fly. That's our wire. When I finish off wire like this, before I cut it, I like to pull it backwards. Make sure it's going to sit right where I want it. And then you can be a little bit greedier on your cut and not have to worry about where the excess wire is. It's just going to use our fingernail there, push it against the chenille, and then any 1, 2, 3 reps, and you're covered. All right. So now let's get into our chenille, or I'm sorry, our dubbing. We've got white. That's going to be the bottom of our streamer, and green is going to sit on top. Remember, we have our upturned hook. And it's going to take you a couple tries at this to get used to tying with that hook point being right in your way. But what we want to do here is when you take about a pencil diameter of dubbing off the skein, and you can work it out to make it longer and longer and longer on the ends. If it starts to fall apart, pull it apart again and restack it and begin to work it back out. Amazing, amazing product. Okay, so right about the midpoint, we're going to put it like so on the top of our shank. We're going to grab it with about 3 thread wraps, not real tight, but enough to hold us in position here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. At this point, you want to work the laser dub around the top of the shank on both sides and make sure it covers even with the eye of the hook. And what this does is when we go to tie in our bottom, they're going to line up and meet right in the center and give you a nice lateral line. One thing you can also do, keep a handy dandy comb and just sneak that on either side of the hook. Make it a little smoother when we come over with the veil. So now it looks pretty good. I'm happy with the sides. And we're going to just add a couple more wraps to really cinch it down in place. Make sure your wraps just kind of go touching one wrap back at a time, one forward. And now the key to this move is as you grab your dubbing, we're going to maintain full tension on our thread, pulling straight down. Go ahead and bring your dubbing back or veil it over your previous and make one wrap clean in front of the dubbing. Now you can relax and this isn't going to spring back on you. So go ahead and divide it again over that hook point very carefully. So now with your thumb you can kind of ease this dubbing back into a nice spot so that it gives you a little bit of a tapered finish when you wrap these next wraps. And we're going to catch it again and just give it a quick check. Make sure you're lined up directly on your lateral lines, covering just the top half of the hook shank. Once you're happy, go ahead and snug this down and really get some strength in there. All right. Great way to protect this little bundle from coming loose and throwing off your flies. Go ahead and just throw a little whip finish right on top there. All right. So now we're ready to turn the hook over and let's get rid of some of these loose fibers. The nice thing about this laser dub as well is a little water on the fingertips will pull through. All the loose fibers are going to lay down nice, come right out for you. Then you can also control the taper and the length of your body. So now you can see the bottom half of the shank is exposed. Get a little bit better there. Okay. Now we're going to switch over to our little white clump of Sanyo's laser dub. We're going to do the same thing. So right about midpoint, get a good pinch, and lay it right on top. Come in with our material hand, and again 3 wraps. First one just loose to guide it, and then 2 better ones to position. And we'll simply at this point snug it over on both sides to line up with our olive. And a couple extra wraps just to tie it all in. Make sure it gets all the way back to your tie-in point from the olive color. Come forward, and again, while maintaining that real good downward pressure with your thread, bring the next section of dubbing over and veil it. 1, 2 wraps in front, And now we can make sure that our dummy will line up. Okay. Again, just that slight little tug down with the thumb and give you just a little more material to work with, make a little neater tie off here. All right, looks like our sides are going to line up fine. So we're just going to finish this off. And again, you could throw, if you were going to put another material in the front, you could do a whip finish in the back and then another one in the front. But since we're not adding another material right there, we'll just finish it off with the whip finish. And one more. Okay. Just real quick, we're going to throw a little head cement on there. Be careful you don't get any excess head cement into the laser dub itself. It will absorb just a little, and just put a little kink in there you don't need. Pretty messy eye we've got there. And again, at this point, handy dandy comb. Go ahead and, not real aggressive, but enough to pull out any loose fibers. Comb out all that laser dub. Once you've gotten most of those fibers out of there, go ahead and get your fingers wet again and slick the fibers back. Make sure they're still lined up. Got a good taper there, so you can see once we've got our shank in the front, it's going to look really nice. Alright, for our shank, we're going to use a 35mm articulated shank. And since this hook is going to ride upturned, when we put our shank on, we're going to leave the gap on the bottom side. And the reason being, we're going to use a little bit of wire again underneath to make a smoother transition. And it'll fill in and make a smoother fly in the end. It'll also put the weight where we want it. So we'll slip it in like such. And snuggle it down. Good. Now we can remove the hook and toss in the shank. A little tighter. Okay. Make sure that's not in our way. All right. Sometimes these articulated shanks, they all have a different style of attaching and a way of tying them down. The essence is this. Make sure you seal this off with thread and don't give this any way for the hook to slip out, and you'll be golden. You can use a little non-serrated pair of pliers or something to pinch that together if you want. If you've got enough pressure in your vise, you can usually just push down on the top. And all you want to do is make sure it's not off to the front or to the side, and just right on top of that shank. After 4, 5, 6 wraps, you can just maintain pressure. You do want to get a good number of wraps on this. You don't want a spring-loaded fly coming apart at you. All right. So in the same way that we put a little bit of weight on the underside of our hook, we're going to put some weight on the underside of our articulated shank, and for the same reason, to help it keel, and then also for that smoother transition when we make the body. And I don't want to crowd the eye of this shank, because we'll be coming in eventually and putting the head on and all. We still have all this material to add, so nothing crazy, just enough to help it keel when it's in the water. And once again, if we have more time, I'd cement this, set it aside, and make 10 or 12 at a time, and you'd have dry ones, but just go right into tying this fly. Okay. Now, since we've got this rather large chunk of metal left where our connection is, we're going to cover that up, and we're not using any flash on the sides or top with this fly, but we're going to add in some silver UV polar chenille. And the nice thing is you can trim it down, and you see all the fibers pretty much come off one side of the core. And so at that point we can tie it in with the fibers facing rearward as you would with a rabbit or anything like that. So let's get this tied in. And depending on how much flash you like, I would say probably 4 to 5 turns of this stuff is plenty. Again, all we're going to do is try to cover up a little bit of that metal look and also add a little flash to our streamer. So as you wind this, go ahead and keep the fibers moving back. Like again, just like you would brush back the fibers of a rabbit strip or anything like that. And yes, just like rabbit, it does help to have water nearby and get a little moisture on your fingers. I think one more and we'll have a good cover there. The nice thing about this laser dub too is as this blends over when we tie in the next clumps, it'll fade some of that bling out, and it'll look just like the sides of a minnow. All right, a little more water, help tame these crazy fibers here. And I've got a clean tie-off spot then. Clip. And just tidy up where we cut that and make sure chenille, polar chenille is secure all the way back to our clean tie-in spot. There we go. And from there, we're just going to repeat the steps we made on the first section of body. So first thing we need is a little brassy silver wire. Should get a clean wrap right back to our last tie-in. Next is our crystal pearl chenille. This one has the bonus of laser dub attached, but get rid of some of that. Alright. Grab just the core if we can. And come forward. I'm going to probably finish this about where the thread is ended right there. And the reason being, once we slip our head on, you have to start imagining how much room do we need for the laser dub, all that good stuff. So keep that in mind as you go. And again, before we start wrapping our chenille, I'm going to bring the wire forward. One wrap behind the wire with our chenille. Pull the wire back. Just wrap, wrap, wrap. There. As this fly is in the water and the dubbing becomes a little translucent, the little flash here from our chenille will definitely be noticed by cruising fish. And again, the counter wrap. Wiggle it just a touch as you go. Rather even spacing does seem to help. You can use any color wire, chenille, whatever you like on the inside of your fly to be seen. And I'm going to finish it right about there. And again, pull it back. Get our wire scissors. And go ahead and again push that wire end down against the body. A couple wraps. And we're ready for some dubbing. One thing when you're getting used to using these heads, before you tie in your last material, go ahead and just take a look inside the cavity of that and picture where that needs to end. So somewhere around the eyeball here is where our dubbing has to stop, otherwise it'll hit too far. So now we're ready to add our last two clumps of laser dub here. olive ready to go on top. One, two, and gently three snug up wraps. Make sure you're good on your sides. You can always check it from underneath. Make sure you're lined up pretty even on the sides there. Two more good wraps to cinch it down. One back, and then constant tension and pull back. Got two wraps there. Just make sure this spreads out exactly where you want it. The time to be picky is now. Snug that one up a little bit. Okay, a couple more wraps, and I'm gonna just comb out loosely some of these stray fibers here. Okay. And again, just a little water and slick them back. Now we're gonna tidy that up and add one real quick whip finish, just to make sure our clumps don't start to rotate on the sides of the hook. Okay. Oop. And we got a loose thread. Come back. Alright. Now we're ready for our clump of white laser dub. If you see it's going to be too thick there, just go ahead and thin some of that out before you even start tying it on. Alright. Loose, and then two a little bit snugger. This is going to be pretty good. Alright. Our final two. Make sure you come back to that tie-in point of the previous there. Alright, when you're ready, tension, come in front. Then you can put your white exactly where you want that one. Tie it off. Now check your sides again. And just because we have a comb, we should probably use it. This does help line up the rear section of the fly with the front. Make sure your lines are good all over. Loose stuff, get rid of it. And just a little bit of moisture on the fingers. And we're ready for our whip finish on this guy. Okay, so at this point, to finish this fly, one, I really like to make sure that the cavity of this head is going to be full, so when we adhere it, it's got plenty of surface area for that glue to catch the inside of that head. So I'm going to try to make a little bit more of a gradual slope here. And we're going to add just a little bit more of our silver UV polar chenille that we used at the connection. Right there, looks pretty good. Again, thinking in terms of rabbit, the fibers are going back. Trim that little guy there. Tidy it up, and we're ready to wrap our chenille. Here we go. Just pinch back with your left hand as you go. Sometimes this does want to turn on you. There we go. Water, and finish it right. Try not to catch too many of these fibers if you can avoid it. Makes it much easier to get a nice clean cut. There we go. Come on back. Just to double check before we start adding glue, let's see if our head's going to have a good fit. Oh yeah, it's going to snug up just like glue wants. Do now is tie off our chenille. Make it nice and neat. second whip finish. Go one more. We'll tug and make sure it's a clean cut. Alright. So now for whichever intensely strong glue you prefer, I'm just going to put a nice little bead around where the chenille and thread wraps meet, making sure we don't gum up any area near the eye of the hook. So, and here we go. Nothing to it. So at this point, go ahead and check your sides. Make sure your lines look good throughout the whole fly. Normally, you'd want to leave this in the vise for just a few minutes, let the head dry. And at this point, you would have the laser dub veiled articulated streamer, little baby bow. So thanks for joining us here at Spawn Fly Fish. Be sure to check out spawnflyfish.com. Check out our new heads and any new videos we might have. Thanks.